Winston Churchill was a British statesman, writer, and orator who is widely regarded as one of the greatest leaders of the 20th century. He was born on November 30, 1874, in Blenheim Palace, Oxfordshire, England, and died on January 24, 1965, in London, England. Churchill was a member of the Conservative Party and served as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom from 1940 to 1945 and again from 1951 to 1955. He is best known for his leadership of the United Kingdom during World War II, particularly his stirring speeches and radio broadcasts that rallied the British people and inspired the Allied forces. Churchill was a prolific writer and won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1953 for his 6-volume work, The Second World War. He was also a gifted orator and delivered many memorable speeches throughout his career, including his famous "We Shall Fight on the Beaches" speech in 1940. Churchill's political career spanned more than 60 years, during which he held many important positions, including Home Secretary, First Lord of the Admiralty, and Chancellor of the Exchequer. He was a staunch defender of the British Empire and played a key role in shaping the post-war world order. Churchill was also a strong advocate for democracy and freedom, and his speeches and writings continue to inspire people around the world today. Winston Churchill was a towering figure in British and world history, whose leadership, courage, and eloquence helped guide the United Kingdom through one of its darkest hours. His legacy continues to inspire people around the world today, and his contributions to literature, politics, and public life will be remembered for generations to come. Here are some of his most famous quotes. "Do not trust any statistics you did not fake yourself. You don't make the poor richer by making the rich poorer. Attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference. Christopher Columbus was the first socialist. He didn't know where he was going, he didn't know where he was. And he did it all at taxpayers' expense. Never engage in a battle of wits with an unarmed man. Never let a good crisis go to waste. Never, ever give up." One day President Roosevelt told me that he was asking publicly for suggestions about what the war should be called. I said at once, "The unnecessary war." If the present tries to sit in judgment of the past, it will lose the future. Success is the ability to continue to move through total disaster. Socialism is like a dream. Sooner or later you wake up to reality. If you're going through hell, keep going. We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. Life can either be accepted or changed. If it is not accepted, it must be changed. If it cannot be changed, then it must be accepted. When there is no enemy within, the enemies outside cannot hurt you. We contend that for a nation to try to tax itself into prosperity is like a man standing in a bucket and trying to lift himself up by the handle. A fanatic is one who can't change his mind and won't change the subject. Socialism is an attack on the right to breathe freely. No socialist system can be established without a political police. Your greatest fears are created by your imagination. Don't give in to them. The gin and tonic has saved more Englishmen's lives, and minds, than all the doctors in the empire. When we judge or criticize another person, it says nothing about that person, it merely says something about our own need to be critical. If Britain must choose between Europe and the open sea, she must always choose the open sea. If you want to discover new oceans, you must first have the courage to leave shore. You can measure a man's character by the choices he makes under pressure. Sometimes our best is simply not enough. We have to do what is required. If you find a job you love, you'll never work again. I no longer listen to what people say, I just watch what they do. Behavior never lies. Diplomacy is the art of telling people to go to hell in such a way that they ask for directions. Socialism is a philosophy of failure, the creed of ignorance, and the gospel of envy. Its inherent virtue is the equal sharing of misery. You will never reach your destination if you stop and throw stones at every dog that barks. Success is not final, failure is not fatal, it is the courage to continue that counts. Fear is a reaction. Courage is a decision. If you're not a liberal at 20, you have no heart. If you're not a conservative at 40, you have no brain. A nation that forgets its past has no future. The positive thinker sees the invisible, feels the intangible, and achieves the impossible. There is nothing government can give you that it hasn't taken from you in the first place. Success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. A pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity, an optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty. A good speech should be like a woman's skirt, long enough to cover the subject and short enough to create interest. I'd rather argue against 100 idiots than have one agree with me. Whenever I feel the need to take some exercise, I lie down until the feeling goes away. Lady Nancy Astor, Winston, if you were my husband, I'd poison your tea. Churchill, Nancy, if I were your husband, I'd drink it. Great success always comes at the risk of enormous failure. The best argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with the average voter. The main vice of capitalism is the uneven distribution of prosperity. The main vice of socialism is the even distribution of misery. You can always count on Americans to do the right thing, after they've tried everything else. Courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen. You have enemies. Good. That means you've stood up for something, sometime in your life. Some men change their party for the sake of their principles, others their principles for the sake of their party. Appeasement is feeding the crocodile, hoping he will eat you last. One man with conviction will overwhelm 100 who have only opinions. It is better to do something than to do nothing while waiting to do everything. A nation that fails to honor its heroes, soon will have no heroes to honor. A lie gets halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to get its pants on. All the great things are simple, and many can be expressed in a single word: freedom, justice, honor, duty, mercy, hope. Never give up on something that you can't go a day without thinking about. Mr. Churchill, you're drunk. Mr. Churchill, and you, Lady Astor, are ugly. As for my condition, it will pass by the morning. You, however, will still be ugly. Continuous effort, not strength or intelligence, is the key to unlocking our potential. He who fails to plan is planning to fail. In war, it does not matter who is right, but who is left. If two people agree on everything, one of them is unnecessary. There is no such thing as public opinion. There is only published opinion. All men make mistakes, but only wise men learn from their mistakes. Kites rise highest against the wind, not with it. I began my education at a very early age, in fact, right after I left college. However beautiful the strategy, you should occasionally look at the results. Life is fraught with opportunities to keep your mouth shut. Success comes from continuing to strive, fail, and learn without losing enthusiasm. The farther backward you can look, the farther forward you can see. It's never over till it's over. Never give up. Never. If you make 10,000 regulations, you destroy all respect for the law. The cemetery is full of indispensable people. To improve is to change, to be perfect is to change often. Men occasionally stumble over the truth, but most of them pick themselves up and hurry off as if nothing had happened. Americans always do the right thing, once they have exhausted all other possibilities. Never abandon life. There is a way out of everything except death. If we are together, nothing is impossible. If we are divided, all will fail. If you destroy a free market, you create a black market. If you don't take change by the hand, it will take you by the throat. All dogs look up to you. All cats look down on you. Only the pig looks at you as an equal. I get my exercise being a pallbearer for those of my friends who believed in regular running and calisthenics. When the eagles are silent, the parrots begin to jabber. You may have to fight when there is no hope of victory, because it is better to perish than live as slaves. When they told me that by the year 2100 women would rule the world, my reply was, still. The man who can master his time can master nearly anything. Courage is the ability to go from failure to failure with enthusiasm. An appeaser is one who feeds a crocodile, hoping it will eat him last. Your day will go the way the corners of your mouth turn. It is a good thing to stand away from the canvas from time to time and take a full view of the picture. Criticism may not be agreeable, but it is necessary. It fulfills the same function as pain in the human body. It calls attention to an unhealthy state of things. There is not much collective security in a flock of sheep on the way to the butcher. The difference between mere management and leadership is communication. Now, this is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end. But it is, perhaps, the end of the beginning. The inherent vice of capitalism is the unequal sharing of blessings. The inherent virtue of socialism is the equal sharing of miseries. Study history, study history. In history lie all the secrets of statecraft. People who are not prepared to do unpopular things and defy the clamor of the multitude are not fit to be ministers in time of difficulty. Mountaintops inspire leaders, but valleys mature them. If you don't have any enemies in life, you have never stood up for anything. I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears and sweat. Our future is in our hands. Our lives are what we choose to make them. I hate Indians. They are a beastly people with a beastly religion. The malice of the wicked was reinforced by the weakness of the virtuous. Remember, gentlemen, it's not just France we're fighting for, it's Champagne. Without execution, thinking is mere idleness. The American Constitution declares, all men are born equal. The British Socialist Party add, all men must be kept equal. Perfectionism spells paralysis. One cannot leap a chasm in 2 jumps. Better to dare mighty things and fail than to live in a gray twilight where there is neither victory nor defeat. They say that nobody is perfect. Then they tell you practice makes perfect. I wish they'd make up their minds. A man is about as big as the things that make him angry. Keep calm and carry on. The greatest lesson in life is to know that even fools are right sometimes. Criticism is easy, achievement is difficult. Socialism is inseparably interwoven with totalitarianism and the object worship of the state. A nation which has forgotten its past can have no future. Nourish your hopes, but do not overlook realities. A gentleman is a man who is only rude when he intends to be. You were given the choice between war and dishonor. You chose dishonor and you will have war. After a time, civil servants tend to become no longer servants and no longer civil. Money is like manure, it's only good if you spread it around. Give me the facts, and I will twist them the way I want, to suit my argument. We are masters of the unsaid words, but slaves of those we let slip out. If the past sits in judgment on the present, the future will be lost. The truth is incontrovertible. Malice may attack it, ignorance may deride it, but in the end, there it is. Everybody stumbles across a golden opportunity at least once in a lifetime. Unfortunately, most people just pick themselves up, dust themselves down, and walk away from it. I'm too busy. I have no time for worry. Victory will never be found by taking the path of least resistance. I always like to learn, but I don't always like to be taught. For the first 25 years of my life, I wanted freedom. For the next 25 years, I wanted order. For the next 25 years, I realized that order is freedom. Success always demands a greater effort. A prisoner of war is a man who tries to kill you and fails, and then asks you not to kill him. It is not enough that we do our best, sometimes we must do what is required. To be conservative at 20 is heartless, and to be a liberal at 60 is plain idiocy. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Things don't happen to me. I happen to things. It is a mistake to look too far ahead. Only one link of the chain of destiny can be handled at a time. I am a man of simple tastes. I am quite easily satisfied with the best of everything. War is horrible, but slavery is worse. I never worry about action, but only inaction. The price of greatness is responsibility. May the pain you have known and the conflict you have experienced give you the strength to walk through life facing each new situation with courage and optimism. I am an optimist. It does not seem too much use being anything else. My education was interrupted only by my schooling. Any idiot can see something wrong. But can you see what is right? An optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty. It is no use saying, "We are doing our best." You have got to succeed in doing what is necessary. Success is often nothing more than moving from one failure to another with undiminished enthusiasm. Victory at all costs, victory in spite of all terror, victory however long and hard the road may be, for without victory, there is no survival. Let our advance worrying become advance thinking and planning. Russia is a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma. I like things to happen, and if they don't happen, I like to make them happen. A small lie needs a bodyguard of bigger lies to protect it. In order to become a great man, one must first be a great rascal. Don't interrupt me while I'm interrupting. No one ever finds life worth living, one has to make it worth living. Don't argue about the difficulties. The difficulties will argue for themselves. Mr. Churchill, to what do you attribute your success in life? Conservation of energy. Never stand up when you can sit down. And never sit down when you can lie down. Rules were made for fools to follow and wise men to be guided by. Democracy means that if the doorbell rings in the early hours, it is likely to be the milkman. With integrity, nothing else counts. Without integrity, nothing else counts. There is nothing wrong with change, if it is in the right direction. When a nation has allowed itself to fall under a tyrannical regime, it cannot be absolved from the faults due to the guilt of that regime. Never give in. Never give in. Never, 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 in nothing, great or small, large or petty, never give in, except to convictions of honor and good sense. The most important thing about education is appetite. It is no use doing what you like, you have got to like what you do. Healthy citizens are the greatest asset any country can have. I am quite sure that if we open a quarrel between the past and the present, we shall find that we have lost the future. I am always ready to learn, although I do not always like being taught. By swallowing evil words unsaid, no one has ever harmed his stomach. Show me a young conservative and I'll show you someone with no heart. Show me an old liberal and I'll show you someone with no brains. When someone says to me, "Ugh, you smoke," I reply, "Ugh, you're ugly. I can quit smoking. I am your servant. You have the right to dismiss me when you please. What you have no right to do is ask me to bear responsibility without the power of action." Of all the branches of men in the forces, there is none which shows more devotion and faces grimmer perils than the submariners. The true guide of life is to do what is right. "Keep England white" is a good slogan. Have no fear of the future. Let us go forward into its mysteries, tear away the veils which hide it from our eyes, and move onwards with confidence and courage. In the course of my life, I have often had to eat my words, and I must confess that I have always found it a wholesome diet. How fortunate it was for the world that when these great trials came upon it, there was a generation that terror could not conquer and brutal violence could not enslave. There are a terrible lot of lies going about the world, and the worst of it is that half of them are true. Politics is more dangerous than war, for in war you are only killed once. When we run out of money, we have to start thinking. He has the gift of compressing the largest amount of words into the smallest amount of thoughts. We are still masters of our fate. We are still captains of our souls. Success in life is the ability to move from one mistake to another without losing enthusiasm. Never stand so high upon a principle that you cannot lower it to suit the circumstances. The shortest road to ruin is to emulate the methods of your adversary. The water was not fit to drink. To make it palatable, we had to add whiskey. By diligent effort, I learned to like it. Nothing in life is so exhilarating as to be shot at without result. Difficulties mastered are opportunities won. I have always felt that a politician is to be judged by the animosities he excites among his opponents. It is the English-speaking nations who, almost alone, keep alight the torch of freedom. Most of the world's work is done by people who don't feel very well. Before you can inspire with emotion, you must be swamped with it yourself. Before you can move their tears, your own must flow. To convince them, you must yourself believe. The chief aim of wisdom is to enable one to bear with the stupidity of the ignorant. As long as we have faith in our own cause and an unconquerable will to win, victory will not be denied us. All the great things are simple. Watch your character, for your character is your destiny. Failure should never go to heart and success should never go to head, both makes a person to fall in life. History is written by the victors. Saving is a fine thing. Especially when your parents have done it for you. Diplomacy is the art of telling plain truths without giving offense. Never, never, never give up. No folly is more costly than the folly of intolerant idealism. When told by a helpful aide that his flies were undone, he replied, "Young man, there is no harm in leaving the cage door open if the bird is dead." We have no lasting friends, no lasting enemies, only lasting interests. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. A politician needs the ability to foretell what is going to happen tomorrow, next week, next month, and next year. And to have the ability afterwards to explain why it didn't happen. I was not the lion, but it fell to me to give the lion's roar. A modest little person, with much to be modest about. Meet success like a gentleman, disaster like a man. What is the use of living, if it be not to strive for noble causes? A vocabulary of truth and simplicity will be of service throughout your life. Perhaps it is better to be irresponsible and right, than to be responsible and wrong. The only statistics you can trust are those you falsified yourself. I am sorry to have made such a long speech, but I did not have time to write a shorter one. No one should waste a day. I cannot but think we have much to be thankful for, and more still to hope for in the future. It is always wise to look ahead, but difficult to look further than you can see. You ought to let the Jews have Jerusalem, it is they who made it famous. Without courage all other virtues lose their meaning. Where does the family start? It starts with a young man falling in love with a girl, no superior alternative has yet been found. True genius resides in the capacity for evaluation of uncertain, hazardous, and conflicting information. The opposition occupies the benches in front of you, but the enemy sits behind you. Any man who is under 30, and is not a liberal, has no heart, and any man who is over 30, and is not a conservative, has no brains. The empires of the future are the empires of the mind. Expert knowledge is limited knowledge. Success is never found. Failure is never fatal. Courage is the only thing. A communist is like a crocodile. When it opens its mouth you cannot tell whether it is trying to smile or preparing to eat you up. When you get a thing the way you want it, leave it alone. There is a forgotten, nay almost forbidden word, which means more to me than any other. That word is England. If you put two economists XI in a room, you get two opinions, unless one of them is Lord Keynes, in which case you get three opinions. It is a socialist idea that making profits is a vice. I consider the real vice is making losses. The most beautiful voice in the world is that of an educated Southern woman. Success and happiness spring from facing failure after failure with enthusiasm. The United Nations was set up not to get us to heaven, but only to save us from hell. The Aryan stock is bound to triumph. When I was younger I made it a rule never to take strong drink before lunch. It is now my rule never to do so before breakfast. It is my belief, you cannot deal with the most serious things in the world unless you understand the most amusing. Don't talk to me about naval tradition. It's nothing but rum, sodomy, and the lash. Who is not liberal when young, does not have a heart. Who is not conservative when old, does not have a brain. A love for tradition has never weakened a nation, indeed it has strengthened nations in their hour of peril. Dictators ride to and fro upon tigers which they dare not dismount. And the tigers are getting hungry. The flame of Christian ethics is still our highest guide. Everyone has his day, and some days last longer than others. History will be kind to me, for I intend to write it. I am fond of pigs. Dogs look up to us. Cats look down on us. Pigs treat us as equals. You must look at facts, because they look at you. No stronger retrograde force exists in the world. Far from being moribund, Mohammedanism is a militant and proselytizing faith. I am strongly in favor of using poison gas against uncivilized tribes. There is no surer method of economizing and saving money than in the reduction of the number of officials. I propose that 100,000 degenerate Britons should be forcibly sterilized and others put in labor camps to halt the decline of the British race. Courage is the greatest virtue because it guarantees all the rest. In wartime, truth is so precious that she should always be attended by a bodyguard of lies. If we win, nobody will care. If we lose, there will be nobody to care. We must beware of trying to build a society in which nobody counts for anything except a politician or an official, a society where enterprise gains no reward and thrift no privileges. My most brilliant achievement was my ability to be able to persuade my wife to marry me. The man who stands firm in order to protect a sandcastle can never be relied upon, for he has given away his common sense. Men often stumble onto the truth but then quickly dust themselves off and hurry away. Wars are not won by evacuations. Sure I am of this, that you have only to endure to conquer. Only changes in mindsets can extend the frontiers of the possible. The people of Asia were slaves, because they had not learned how to pronounce the word no. Of all the small nations of this earth, perhaps only the ancient Greeks surpassed the Scots in their contribution to mankind. I am prepared to meet my Maker. Whether my Maker is prepared for the great ordeal of meeting me is another matter. If the human race wishes to have a prolonged and indefinite period of material prosperity, they have only got to behave in a peaceful and helpful way toward one another. Golf. Trying to knock a tiny ball into an even smaller hole with implements ill-suited to the purpose. Never hold discussions with the monkey when the organ grinder is in the room. Just to paint is great fun. The colors are lovely to look at and delicious to squeeze out. Matching them, however crudely, with what you see is fascinating and absolutely absorbing. There is no worse mistake in public leadership than to hold out false hope soon to be swept away. When you leave off dreaming, the universe ceases to exist. This is the type of errant pedantry up with which I will not put. If this is a blessing, it is certainly very well disguised. There are no limits to the majestic future which lies before the mighty expanse of Canada with its virile, aspiring, cultured, and generous-hearted people. Out of intense complexities, intense simplicities emerge. Rugby is a hooligan's game played by gentlemen. I am easily satisfied with the very best. Their insatiable lust for power is only equaled by their incurable impotence in exercising it. I may be drunk, miss, but in the morning I will be sober and you will still be ugly. Eating words has never given me indigestion. There is at least one thing worse than fighting with allies, and that is to fight without them. You gotta have some balls to be a female PM in England. When I'm in office I always keep members of Parliament talking. If they stop they might start thinking. In war, resolution; in defeat, defiance; in victory, magnanimity; in peace, goodwill. No crime is so great as daring to excel. Science should be on tap, not on top. To sit at one's table on a sunny morning, with 4 clear hours of uninterruptible security, plenty of nice white paper, and a squeezer pen, that is true happiness. A sheep in sheep's clothing. In critical and baffling situations, it is always best to return to first principle and simple action. I'd prefer to be right than consistent. To be really happy and really safe, one ought to have at least 2 or 3 hobbies, and they must all be real. Where my reason, imagination, or interest were not engaged, I would not or I could not learn. Our dog chases people on a bike. We've had to take it off him. They, the Labour Party, are not fit to manage a whelk stall. We must build a kind of United States of Europe. It is not alone that property, in all its forms, is struck at, but that liberty, in all its forms, is challenged by the fundamental conceptions of socialism. No one can guarantee success in war, but only deserve it. Writing, it begins as an amusement, then it becomes a mistress, then a master, and finally a tyrant. The test of a people is what they can do when they're tired. I have benefited greatly from criticism, and at no time have I suffered a lack thereof. There is no greater mistake than to suppose that platitudes, smooth words, timid policies, offer today a path to safety. We are waiting for the long-promised invasion. So are the fishes. I pass with relief from the tossing sea of cause and theory to the firm ground of result and fact. Any clever person can make plans for winning a war if he has no responsibility for carrying them out. Improvident habits, slovenly systems of agriculture, sluggish methods of commerce and insecurity of property exist wherever the followers of the prophet rule or live. My rule of life prescribed as an absolutely sacred right smoking cigars and also the drinking of alcohol before, after, and if need be during all meals and in the intervals between them. From the days of Weishaupt to those of Karl Marx, this worldwide conspiracy for the overthrow of civilization and for the reconstitution of society has been steadily growing. Wealth, taste and leisure can bring many things, but they do not bring happiness. The Balkans produce more history than they can consume. To jaw is always better than to war. Perfect solutions of our difficulties are not to be looked for in an imperfect world. Indomitable in retreat, invincible in advance, insufferable in victory. Life is a test and this world a place of trial. I do not hold that we should rearm in order to fight. I hold that we should rearm in order to parley. If you mean to profit, learn to please. We, the British, have not journeyed across the centuries, across the oceans, across the mountains, across the prairies, because we are made of sugar candy. It has been said that democracy is the worst form of government except all the others that have been tried. This is no time for ease and comfort. It is time to dare and endure. Hence we will not say that Greeks fight like heroes, but heroes fight like Greeks. To build may have to be the slow and laborious task of years. To destroy can be the thoughtless act of a single day. We are happier in many ways when we are old than when we were young. The young sow wild oats. The old grow sage. The era of procrastination, of half measures, of soothing and baffling expedients, of delays is coming to its close. In its place we are entering a period of consequences. We shape our buildings, thereafter they shape us. When I am abroad, I always make it a rule never to criticize or attack the government of my own country. I make up for lost time when I come home. Plans are of little importance, but planning is essential. Nothing is more costly, nothing is more sterile, than vengeance. Good and great are seldom in the same man. If Hitler invaded hell, I would make at least a favorable reference to the devil in the House of Commons. Solitary trees, if they grow at all, grow strong. Most people hate the taste of beer, to begin with. It is, however, a prejudice that many people have been able to overcome. It is the people who control the government, not the government the people. Broadly speaking, human beings may be divided into three classes: those who are billed to death, those who are worried to death, and those who are bored to death. The world, nature, human beings, do not move like machines. The edges are never clear-cut, but always frayed. Nature never draws a line without smudging it. You never can tell whether bad luck may not after all turn out to be good luck. Where there is a great deal of free speech, there is always a certain amount of foolish speech. If one has to submit, it is wasteful not to do so with the best grace possible. Never trust a man who has not a single redeeming vice. History unfolds itself by strange and unpredictable paths. We have little control over the future, and none at all over the past. Lots of folks are forced to skimp to support a government that won't. Courage is rightly considered the foremost of the virtues, for upon it all others depend. Hatred plays the same part in government as acid in chemistry. I'm going to make a long speech because I've not had the time to prepare a short one. Opening amenities are often opening inanities. All babies look like me. But then, I look like all babies. The way to achieve happiness is to try for perfection that is impossible to achieve, and spend the rest of your life trying to achieve it. In finance, everything that is agreeable is unsound and everything that is sound is disagreeable. I hate nobody except Hitler, and that is professional. There is no doubt that it is around the family and the home that all the greatest virtues, the most dominating virtues of human, are created, strengthened and maintained. The poor girl does not know how to have a conversation. Unfortunately, she does know how to speak. The story of the human race is war. Except for brief and precarious interludes, there has never been peace in the world, and long before history began, murderous strife was universal and unending. Fancy cutting down all those beautiful trees, to make pulp for those bloody newspapers, and calling it civilization. Churchill says the government had to choose between war and shame. They chose shame. They will get war, too. I have found in my experience of war, that plans are useless, but planning is invaluable. Never run away from anything. Never. Land monopoly is not only monopoly, but it is by far the greatest of monopolies. It is a perpetual monopoly, and it is the mother of all other forms of monopoly. Listing your personal milestones is like storing a pocketful of sunshine for a rainy day. Sometimes our best is simply not enough. We have to do what is required. India is a geographical term. It is no more a united nation than the equator. When you are going through hell, keep on going. Never, never, never give up. No matter. The dead bird does not leave the nest. Play the game for more than you can afford to lose, only then will you learn the game. A single glass of champagne imparts a feeling of exhilaration. The nerves are braced, the imagination is stirred, the wits become more nimble. No hour of life is wasted that is spent in the saddle. It is not always possible to have everything go as one likes. In working with allies, it sometimes happens that they develop opinions of their own. We get to make a living, we give to make a life. Mr. Chamberlain loves the working man, he loves to see him work. Never give in except to convictions of honor and good sense. Never yield to force, never yield to the apparently overwhelming might of the enemy. I drink a great deal. I sleep a little, and I smoke cigar after cigar. That is why I am in 200% form. There are two kinds of success: initial and ultimate. I have had to eat my own words many times, and I have found it a very nourishing diet. No comment is a splendid expression. I am using it again and again. In success you deserve it, and in defeat, you need it. You create your own universe as you go along. I like a man who grins when he fights. Should Britain fail, then the entire world would sink into the abyss of a new dark age made more sinister by the lights of perverted science. Preparation is, if not the key to genius, then at least the key to sounding like a genius. Too often the strong, silent man is silent only because he does not know what to say, and is reputed strong only because he has remained silent. It is always more easy to discover and proclaim general principles than it is to apply them. The United States invariably does the right thing, after having exhausted every other alternative. The short words are best, and the old words, when short, are the best of all. My tastes are simple. I like only the very best. It is hard, if not impossible, to snub a beautiful woman. They remain beautiful and the snub recoils. At one side of the palette there is white, at the other black, and neither is ever used neat. Never pass up the chance to sit down or go to the bathroom. Nature will not be admired by proxy. It is wonderful what great strides can be made when there is a resolute purpose behind them. He has all of the virtues I dislike and none of the vices I admire. I would tell myself that I was about to address the largest mass assembly of idiots ever gathered in the history of mankind. There is no purpose in living where there is nothing to do. We are all worms. But I believe that I am a glowworm. I am certainly not one of those who need to be prodded. In fact, if anything, I am the prod. Do you know why the nose of the bulldog is sloped backwards? So it can keep on breathing without ever letting go. These are not dark days, these are great days, the greatest days our country has ever lived. Today I may weigh before an awestruck world, I am still master of my fate. I am still captain of my soul. The only guide to men is his conscience. I have taken more out of alcohol than alcohol has taken out of me. These, gentlemen, are the opinions upon which I base my facts. Politics is not a game. It is an earnest business. Peace will not be preserved by pious sentiments. A joke is a very serious thing. There is only one duty, only one safe course, and that is to try to be right. There is, therefore, wisdom in reserving one's decisions as long as possible and until all the facts and forces that will be potent at the moment are revealed. There is no sphere of human thought in which it is easier to show superficial cleverness and the appearance of superior wisdom than in discussing questions of currency and exchange. The belief that security can be obtained by throwing a small state to the wolves is a fatal delusion. Cannot possibly attend first night, will attend second, if there is one. If you want a good argument against democracy, spend 5 minutes with a voter. It is more agreeable to have the power to give than to receive. Haven't you learned yet that I put something more than whiskey into my speeches? History with its flickering lamp stumbles along the trail of the past, trying to reconstruct its scenes, to revive its echoes, and kindle with pale gleams the passion of former days. I am convinced that there is no smarter, handier, or more adaptable body of troops in the world. So long as I am acting from duty and conviction, I am indifferent to taunts and jeers. I think they will probably do me more good than harm. The nation will find it very hard to look up to the leaders who are keeping their ears to the ground. Canada is the linchpin of the English-speaking world. Un pessimista ve la dificultad en cada oportunidad, un optimista ve una oportunidad en cada dificultad. The worst mistake that a statesman can make is to promise victory and to see it dashed, the hopes dashed. We have always found the Irish a bit odd. They refuse to be English. Those who plan do better than those who do not plan, even should they rarely stick to their plan. War is a game that is played with a smile. If you can't smile, grin. If you can't grin, keep out of the way till you can. It is a good thing for an uneducated man to read books of quotations. Every man should ask himself each day whether he is not too readily accepting negative solutions. The tired parts of the mind can be rested and strengthened not merely by rest, but by using other parts. Do what you like, but like what you do. There is something going on in time and space, and beyond time and space, which, whether we like it or not, spells duty. There are plenty of good ideas, if only they can be backed with the power of action. There is nothing like oratory, it is a skill that can turn a commoner into a king. A medal glitters, but it also casts a shadow. The Battle of France is over. The Battle of Britain is about to begin. Upon this battle depends the future of Christian civilization. Christmas is a season not only of rejoicing but of reflection. The length of this document defends it well against the risk of its being read. What is adequacy? Adequacy is no standard at all. We have not journeyed all this way because we are made of sugar candy. Happy are the painters, for they shall not be lonely. Light and color, peace and hope, will keep them company to the end of the day. Everyone threw the blame on me, they nearly always do. I suppose, they think I shall be able to bear it best. We must not lose our faculty to dare, particularly in dark days. In Russia, a man is called reactionary if he objects to having his property stolen and his wife and children murdered. Tidiness is a virtue, symmetry is often a constituent of beauty. You create your own universe as you go along. The stronger your imagination, the more variegated your universe. When you leave off dreaming, the universe ceases to exist. The problems of victory are more agreeable than those of defeat, but they are no less difficult. Censure is often useful, praise is often deceitful. Which brings me to my conclusion upon free will and predestination, namely, let the reader mark it, that they are identical. Always remember, however sure you are that you could easily win, that there would not be a war if the other man did not think he also had a chance. This wicked man Hitler, the repository and embodiment of many forms of soul-destroying hatred. This monstrous product of former wrongs and shame. Before Alamein we never had a victory. After Alamein we never had a defeat. No idea is so outlandish that it should not be considered with a searching but at the same time a steady eye. Everyone has a right to pronounce foreign names as he chooses. The English never draw a line without blurring it. Without tradition, art is a flock of sheep without a shepherd. Without innovation, it is a corpse. It is one thing to see the forward path and another to be able to take it. But it is better to have an ambitious plan than none at all. Make sure that the beer, 4 pints a week, goes to the troops under fire before any of the parties in the rear get a drop. Anyone who is not a liberal in his youth has no heart. Anyone who remains so as he matures has no brain. I was on the whole considerably discouraged by my school days. It is not pleasant to feel oneself so completely outclassed and left behind at the very beginning of the race. When you are on a great horse, you have the best seat you will ever have. Victory is not final. Defeat is not failure. It's all about courage. Time and the ocean and some guiding star and high cabal have made us what we are. To win by one is enough. To achieve the extirpation of Nazi tyranny there are no lengths of violence to which we will not go. I do not understand the squeamishness about the use of gas. I am strongly in favor of using poisonous gas against uncivilized tribes. Victory is only wrested by running risks. Free speech carries with it the evil of all foolish, unpleasant venomous things that are said but, on the whole, we would rather lump them than do away with them. I want no criticism of America at my table. The Americans criticize themselves more than enough. It is better to be making the news than taking it, to be an actor rather than a critic. There but for the grace of God, goes God. I'm just preparing my impromptu remarks. We must learn from misfortune the means of future strength. They have done what they like. Their difficulty is to like what they have done. Doubts could be swept away only by deeds. When you have got a thing where you want, it is a good thing to leave it where it is. In battles 2 things are usually required of the commander-in-chief, to make a good plan for his army and, secondly, to keep a strong reserve. Golf is a game whose aim is to hit a very small ball into an ever smaller hole, with weapons singularly ill-designed for the purpose. It is wonderful how well men can keep secrets they have not been told. Curse ruthless time. Curse our mortality. How cruelly short is the allotted span for all we must cram into it. You must put your head into the lion's mouth if the performance is to be a success. Beware of driving men to desperation. Even a cornered rat is dangerous. Never give in except to convictions of honor and good sense. In defeat, unbeatable; in victor, unbearable. The question which we must ask ourselves is not whether we like or do not like what is going on, but what we are going to do about it. The painter wanders and loiters contentedly from place to place, always on the lookout for some brilliant butterfly of a picture which can be caught and carried safely home. No compromise with the main purpose, no peace till victory, no pact with unrepentant wrong. It would be a great reform in politics if perception could be made to spread as easily and as rapidly as foolishness. Sunshine is my quest. If you are going to go through hell, keep going. The power of an air force is terrific when there is nothing to oppose it. Nothing makes a man more reverent than a library. The vistas of possibility are only limited by the shortness of life. Never flinch, never weary, never despair. Playing golf is like chasing a quinine pill around a cow pasture. A polo handicap is a person's ticket to the world. I had a feeling once about mathematics, that I saw it all, but it was after dinner and I let it go. Achievement is not last, disappointment is not deadly, it is the mettle to proceed with that matters. When I get to heaven I mean to spend a considerable portion of my first 1,000,000 years in painting, and so get to the bottom of the subject. Give us the tools, and we will finish the job. Unteachable from infancy to tomb, there is the first and main characteristic of mankind. Socialism would gather all power to the supreme party and party leaders, rising like stately pinnacles above their vast bureaucracies of civil servants, no longer civil. No part of the education of a politician is more indispensable than the fighting of elections. Unless we establish some form of world government, it will not be possible for us to avert a World War III in the future. I am never going to have anything more to do with politics or politicians. When this war is over I shall confine myself entirely to writing and painting. Those whose work and pleasure are one, are fortune's favored children. Woe betide the leaders now perched on their dizzy pinnacles of triumph if they cast away at the conference table what the soldiers had won on 100 blood-soaked battlefields. It cannot in the opinion of His Majesty's government be classified as slavery in the extreme acceptance of the word without some risk of terminological inexactitude. Victory was to be bought so dear as to be almost indistinguishable from defeat. How dreadful are the curses which Mohammedanism lays on its votaries! Besides the fanatical frenzy, which is as dangerous in a man as hydrophobia in a dog, there is a fateful fatalistic apathy. Politics is almost as exciting as war, and quite as dangerous. In war you can only be killed once, but in politics many times. There are men in the world who derive an exaltation from the proximity of disaster and ruin, as other from success. The statesman who yields to war fever must realize that once the signal is given, he is no longer the master of policy but the slave of unforeseeable and uncontrollable events. I would say to the House, as I said to those who have joined this government, I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears and sweat. There is no finer investment for any community than putting milk into babies. I cannot pretend to be impartial about the colors. I rejoice with the brilliant ones, and am genuinely sorry for the poor browns. If you are going through hell, just keep going. We are weakened and we are tired, but we are not done yet.